In this tutorial, we'll be building this cool gooey slide-out menu using Flare and Flutter from scratch in less than 25 minutes. If you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. To get started with Flare, head over to 2dimensions.com and create a free account. Once you have your free account, you can open your files and right-click in the folder and create a new Flare file. Name your file slideout-menu. You can save with the default settings that comes up in the pop-up. Flare will open up with an existing artboard on your canvas. If there's no artboard, you can press A and drag on the canvas to create your own artboard. Double-click on the artboard name in the side and rename it to Drawer. Then under the inspection properties on the right side, we'll change our dimensions to a width of 250 and a height of 1280. Before we start, let's go over some of the controls. To zoom in and out on the canvas, you can scroll up and down using your mouse wheel or two fingers on the Mac. And if you just want to move the canvas around, you right click and drag. The first thing we need to create is the actual drawer. Head over to the plus sign at the top, go into shapes and select the rectangle, or just press the letter U. Once selected, draw a rectangle from the top left to the bottom right on your drawer artboard. Rename the rectangle to drawer as well. Since we'll be modifying the path of this rectangle, click on your rectangle and convert to path on the right section. In your design section on the left, you'll now see a rectangle path under your drawer item. Double click on that and rename it to drawer path. We'll start off by creating the little dent section that we'll be swiping in. Go to tools and select the pen tool. With your rectangle selected, you can now click on edit vertices. We'll add 2 additional points on the left side equally spaced apart. We want the middle section to be curved, so click on the middle point and go to the right side and select mirrored, and then bring it in so it's still a straight line. Then you can press T on your keyboard to activate your transform tool. Once your move tool is activated, click on the middle point again and use the horizontal arrow to move out the middle section just a little bit. Then while holding Control or Command on a Mac, click on the 2 top points and move it up just a little bit more. We need the bottom left point to contribute to this curve as well. Click on the bottom left point and select Detached as your control point option. Then click on your topmost point and select Mirrored, and move the hand so that it's still straight but provides a little bit of a curve. Now click on the rectangle, remove the stroke and set your fill as 2D, 2D, 2D. The drawer dent doesn't look too smooth at the moment, so you can edit the vertices and adjust the points a little bit. You can follow along with what I'm doing on screen, or you can just adjust it to your own liking. With that, all the setup is done and we can go over to the Animate tab on the left side menu. In the bottom left in your animations section, double click on your animation untitled and rename it to close. The close animation will only be 40 frames long. So head over to the duration section next to the frames per second and change it to 40 frames. We can now start editing our path on the timeline. Move your current position on the timeline to 0 and click on the keyframe icon next to edit vertices to add 1 keyframe. Move the timeline cursor to 10 frames, click on the middle point and drag it until it touches the right side of the artboard. If you move your timeline cursor to the left back to 0 and back to 10, you'll see the curve moving as well. That's what we'll be doing this entire tutorial. Now select the bottom left point and move it to the right side by 10 or 20 pixels. Select your control point and move it to the right to smooth out the curve. Now select the top middle point, move it in and up by about the same amount as you did the bottom left point. We'll turn on the ruler so that we can see if these points align with each other. The middle point we actually want to be a little bit further in, and we'll use our control points to create the curve towards the edge. The points we actually want to align is the top left point and the bottom left point of the drawer so that it moves in sync. Moving a timeline cursor between these 2 points should give you a nice looking gooey effect. Move your timeline cursor to 20 frames. Select your bottom left and top left points and move it till it's about 20 to 50 pixels away from the right side of the drawer. Select the control point of the bottom left point and make it parallel to your artboard's borders. Straighten up the control point of the top middle point and make it parallel to the artboard's borders as well. Then move the point in until it's also 20 to 50 pixels away from the right side border. Select the middle point and move it out so that it creates a little curve towards the left side of the artboard. Let's clean up a little bit and make sure that the bottom left and the top left points of our paths are aligned and a bit closer to the right side of our drawer. Let's use the last 20 frames of this animation to establish some kind of momentum. Go to the 30 frames mark, select your bottom left point, move it to the left by 10 or 20 pixels, then move your control point to the right as much as you want to create a curve towards the right side of the artboard. Then we'll do the same thing with the top left point. Move it to the left and then we'll use our middle top point to create the curve instead of the top left point. Put your cursor on the 40 frame mark. Move your bottom left point close to the right side of the border and make the control point parallel to the right side of the artboard. Shrink down the control points on your bottom middle point and make sure that your top middle points, control points are vertical and aligned with the right side of the artboard. Then move the top left point of the drawer so that it aligns with the bottom left point. You can preview it by pressing the spacebar on your keyboard or clicking the play button next to your animation name. Now we can start with a new animation. Click the plus in the bottom left corner and name your animation Open. These animations play out at 60 frames per second. So we want this animation to be 60 frames exactly, so we'll set it to 1 second. We want the curve of our drawer to start at the exact same position as our close animation ended. Go back to the close animation, click on the last keyframe, press Ctrl C or Command V to copy, head back to your open animation and click the keyframe icon next to the Edit Vertices button. Then go down into your timeline and press Ctrl V to paste your keyframes. Go to 10 frames and we'll start editing the curve from there. Select the bottom middle point, move the control points further apart and move the point to the left side of the artboard. Then select the top middle point, move it in by 50 to 100 pixels, make your control points larger and curve it towards the right side of the artboard. Then select the top left point and move it in just 10 or 5 pixels and you'll do the same with the bottom left point. Then adjust your point to smooth out the bottom left curve. Now move your timeline marker to 20 frames. Move your bottom left point until it touches the left side of the artboard. Then take your topmost control point and move it to the right until your path is parallel with the artboard. Then take your top left point and move it to the left side of the artboard as well. Do the same with your top middle point and adjust the control point so that your curve is straight and parallel to the artboard. Select the bottom middle point and move it to the right side by about 50 pixels so that it causes a nice inward curve. Make your control points just a little bit smaller and then adjust the curve to your liking. We want to create a little wobble effect with this curve. Move your marker to 25 frames. Then move the bottom middle point back till it touches the left side of the artboard. Then move the bottom left and your top middle point out by about 30 pixels. We want this momentum to settle down as goo would slowly over time, so head over to 40 frames and move your points that you moved out back to touch the left side of the artboard. For this open animation, we want our last frame to equal the first frame of our close animation. So open your close animation, click on the first frame, Ctrl C or Command C to copy, then go to your open animation, put your marker at 60 frames and paste. Looking at this preview, I don't like the way that the dent frame appears. I would like that to appear with more momentum at the end. Select the keyframe at 40 frames, go to the bottom right, change your type to cubic, take the bottom control point almost all the way to the right and point the top one down. This will cause the value to ramp up slowly and then speed up fast at the end. In the repo that you cloned, go to the menu assets folder and select all the files and move it into your design tab. The folder also contains the full previews of how the final image should look. So you can use that or you can just follow along with me to build it up. We'll start by building the flower menu icon. Drag in your flower body and set the scale to 0.3 for X and Y. Center the body along the top side of the drawer. Then drag in your flower center and set the scale to 0.3 for X and Y. Then you can put on your flower golden dots and set the scale to 0.3 as well and center that in your flower body. Lastly, we'll add the flower's soft white dots and we'll center that as well and set the scale to 0.3. Adjust the draw order so that everything is drawing in the correct position. We want our flower body at the bottom, then we want our soft white, then our flower center, and then the golden circles. Head back to the design tab. Select all your flower assets and press Ctrl G or Command G to group them. Change the name of your group to flower. Next up, we will be building our croissant, but we'll just call it bread because I can't pronounce that word. We'll follow the same process of putting in our assets and setting our scale to 0.3. Drag in your CR large image and then the CR mid will go next to that and CR side will be the ends. Then you want to drag in your CR shadow asset, set the scales to 0.3 and move it to the correct location. Go to your draw order tab, then start to reorganize the assets. We'll place the shadow at the bottom, then we'll place the CR large at the top, the CR mid underneath that, and the CR small below the CR mid. Just do some minor adjustments for your shadow, then select all of the assets for the bread and press Ctrl G and name it bread. Now that it's all grouped, you can place it at the correct position in the center of the drawer. Next up, we'll build our watermelon. Drag in the watermelon body, set the scale to 0.3. Then drag in your seed asset. You can place your seeds wherever you want. I'll just place 3 random seeds that's rotated a little bit all over the body. Select all the watermelon assets and group them by pressing Ctrl G and name it watermelon. Now all the design is done, so we can start animating these menu assets. Open the animate tab and we'll start by animating the close animation. We'll start by animating the flower first. Make sure your timeline marker is at the beginning of the animation. Make sure your flower is selected and then press the keyframe icons next to the position and the rotation. For this animation, I want the menu items to appear like it's stuck on a piece of glue. We'll use this imaginary line down the middle and we'll rotate our icons to point to that line whenever our curve changes. Go to the 10th frame, then rotate the flower so that the blue top arrow points in the direction that your curve is pointing at the top left side of your drawer. Move the flower to the right by the same amount that your drawer has shifted. That should give you the illusion that the flower is now moving with the drawer. Now you can go to the 20 frame mark, select your flower and reset its rotation and then move it off the screen completely. And that's it for your flower animation. In the left panel, select your bread group and make sure that you are at the beginning of your animation and click the keyframe icons next to position and rotation. Next to the auto key text by your timeline tools, there's a cursor icon. When you click this cursor, you'll only see the keyframes for the animation that you're working on. Click that icon and then head over to the 10 frame mark. Move the position of your bread by the same amount that the left side of your drawer has moved. Make sure that the blue arrow at the top is semi-parallel to the curve of the drawer. Then go to the 20 frame mark and move your bread completely out of view. Next up is the watermelon, which will have the most effect in the first 10 frames. Select your watermelon group, make sure that your animation is at the beginning and create keyframes for position X, Y and your rotation. Put your marker at the 10 frame mark, then adjust the position of your watermelon to match the curve's change. Then add a rotation so that the blue arrow points towards the left side of the drawer. Head over to the 20 frame mark and move your watermelon out of view completely. Now if you move your cursor from the beginning to the 20 frames, you should see that it looks like the menu items are stuck on your drawer. And that'll be it for our close animation. Now let's start with the open animation. Select the watermelon, move your timeline marker to the beginning, click your keyframes for position and move it out of the view completely. Do the same for the bread group as well as the flower. Put your timeline marker at the 10th frame. Select flower and put keyframes for X position and Y position. Do the same for bread and for the watermelon. We could have used the hold interpolation for the first frame, but I forgot. Now move your marker to the 20th frame. Select the flower and move it to the center of the drawer. If you scrub it through the animation now, you should see the flower moving in at the same pace that the drawer does. I would like to indicate that there's momentum in this drawer. So we'll make some of the elements in the flower shift to the left before it returns to its original position. Go to the 25 frame mark, select the flower golden dots in your hierarchy on the left and move it to the left side. I want these dots to recover very slowly, so move to the 55th frame, select your golden dots and move it back to the center. Now we'll do the same for the flower center. Go to the 25th frame and move it to the left as far or as close as you want, and then go to the 55th frame and move it back to the center. When you play this animation now, it should look like the momentum is carried in your center elements and then it gets back to its original position. There's still one more thing we can do to make the flower body appear more dynamic. Select the flower group, go to the 20th frame and add a keyframe for rotation. Then go to the 25th frame and rotate the flower body to the left by -8 degrees. Then go to the 30th frame and rotate it to the right by 4 degrees. Then to the 35th frame and rotate it back to 0. If you preview this now, you should see a little bit more dynamic movement in your flower. Next up is the bread. Go to the 20th frame and move the bread to the center of the drawer. The animation I want to do for the bread is, when it stops, I want the motion to carry and the bread to tip onto the left side of its body. Currently our bread is rotating around the center of the group. If we want it to tip on the left, we need our anchor point to be at the bottom left part of our group. Go to the design tab and click on the bread group. With the group selected, you'll see on the right side there's a freeze drop down menu. Select images. This tells the editor to keep the images at the same position so that we can move the nodes around without affecting the images. With your group still selected, click anywhere on the canvas and move your anchor point to the bottom left of your bread. Since the anchor point has moved, we now have to go readjust the bread position at the 20 frame mark. At the 20 frame mark, add a keyframe for rotation. Go to the 25th frame and then rotate the bread value by about -34. We want the bread to kind of balance on its left tip for a little bit, so we'll only recover by the 55th frame. Go to the 55th frame and set the rotation to 5 degrees. Then go to the last frame and set the rotation to 0. Looking at the preview, I actually don't want the bread to fall so linearly. I would like it to have more of a gravity-like feel. So let's isolate our bread keyframes and then select the keyframe at the 25th frame and change the key interpolation type to cubic. We want our rotation value to decrease slowly for the first few frames and then speed up at the end. So adjust your curve to look like mine does on the screen. If you preview this now, it should look more like gravity has an effect on the piece of bread. The next thing I'd like to do is to make all pieces of the bread seem like they're moving separately. Go to the 20 frame mark and add keyframes for position for the CR large, CR mid and CR side asset. Then at 25 frames, click on your CR large asset and move it up so it looks like it's stretched. Click on your CR mid asset and do the same. Select the keyframes for the bread assets at the 20 frame mark and copy. Go to the last frame and paste. By pasting these frames on the last keyframe, we are making sure that our bread recovers to the correct position when the animation is complete. We'll give this bread a little spring effect. Go to the 55th frame and paste your keyframe values. Then select the CR large and bring it down just a little bit and do the same with the mid as well. The spring effect for the bread is still being linearly interpolated. Select your 3 keyframes for the CR large, CR mid and CR side and change your interpolation type to cubic. Match your curve to the one that I'm creating right now. And that will be it for our bread animation. If you preview this now, you'll see that it looks like the bread has some weight to it and that gravity is affecting it as well. Next up, we'll animate the watermelon. Go to the 20 frame mark and move your watermelon into the center of your drawer. For the watermelon animation, I want it to wobble when the drawer stops. We need to move our anchor point or node to the bottom center of our group. Go to the design tab, select the watermelon group, then go to freeze and select images. Once the images is selected, click on the watermelon group and drag down the node until it's at the bottom center of the group. Make sure to change freeze back to none. Now we can start with the animating. Go to the 25th frame and change the rotation for your watermelon to -22. Since I want this to have a similar effect to the bread, I want it to stay on the left side for a little bit before it falls back. So go to the 40th frame and add a rotation for 22 degrees as well. Then head over to the 50th frame and change the rotation to -18 degrees. Go to the 55th frame and change it to 5 degrees. And then to the last frame and change it to 0. In this preview it looks completely fine with a linear interpolation, but I would like it to stay on the left side for a little bit longer before it tips back. Go to the 25th frame and click on your watermelon keyframe. Change your key interpolation to cubic and adjust the curve so that it starts out slow and then speeds up at the end. And with that change, I'm pretty happy with what we got for our open animation. Let's just open up the close animation and see if everything's still fine. We forgot to update the bread's position after we moved the anchor point. So go to the 10th frame and just move it back into the center of the drawer. And there we go. We are done with the animation in Flare. Click on the top right export button, select JSON and click export. Then name your file slideout menu.flr and save. Now let's move on to the implementation. This project doesn't need much setup, so you can create a new Flutter project or you can just drag the start folder into your IDE from the repo that you cloned. Create a new assets folder and drag the animation into your assets folder. Open up your pubspec.yaml file, then uncomment the assets section, then add in the full path to the animation. Then we'll also import the smart flare package. We'll import a version that's greater than 0.2.5. Save this file and then head over to the main file. In the build method of our home widget, we'll return the pan flare actor as a child of our container. Then we'll import the smart flare package. We want the animation to take up the entire height of the screen. So we'll store our screen size in a variable so we can reference it later. We'll set the width of this actor to 135.0 and then we'll set the height to screen size.height. Then we'll supply the full path to the slide out animation in the file name property. This act requires us to tell it which animation to play for the open animation and the close. So we'll supply our animation with open for open animation and close for the close animation. We'll then optionally supply the direction that advances our flare actor. We'll set our direction as right to left since our drawer opens from the right side to the left. Then we'll give it a threshold indicating that if we swipe more than 20 logical units, we want the animation to play out. Then I'd also like the animation to reverse when we release and we haven't reached the threshold. So set your reverse on release to true. We also want the animation to play until completion as soon as the threshold is reached. So set the complete on threshold reached value to true. Then for the interaction, we have to supply our active areas to indicate where we want the swipe to happen. With the latest update of the Smart Flare package, I added a relative pan area that you can use to indicate that you want this area to be swiped in. We'll supply the rectangle that is at the complete left. It is 70% down. It has 100% of the width and about 30% of the height of the flare actor. Set the debug area to true so that you can see your rectangle on screen. When you run the code, you should see your pan flare actor appearing on the left side of the screen and playing the close animation. You can now play around with it. You can swipe it open and you can swipe it closed, and it all works as expected. Let's go over what some of the values that we passed in does. If you drag your animation just a little bit and release, you'll see that it reverses the animation. Change the reverse on release value to false. Reload your code. And once it's reloaded, you'll see that when you drag and release, the menu stays at the same position where you released it. When you reach your threshold, it plays until completion. Change the complete on threshold reached value to false. This value tells the actor to complete the animation as soon as the threshold is reached. When this value is false, the animation will only be completed when we release the touch, which means we can swipe the animation in and out, and without releasing, it'll just play through the entire animation. Let's turn off the debug area and move our animation to where it's supposed to be. We'll wrap our pan flare actor in an align widget and we'll set the alignment to center right. And if you refresh now, you'll see that your menu is on the right side and it's acting as a navigation drawer. If you want to supply your menu items with active areas, just supply it with a normal active area and an on-tap value. Or you can watch the previous tutorial where I go over the active areas on its own. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. And if you want to learn more about using Flare and Flutter, check out my previous videos on Flare animations.